My name is Emma Vance, but to the clientele at the Seraphine, I was simply the quiet waitress. For 3 years, that title, that invisibility, had been my prison and my shield. In my former life, I was Dr. Emma Vance, Senior Curator of Middle Eastern Manuscripts at institutions like Yale and the Metropolitan Museum. My career was destroyed when I uncovered a high-profile international art forgery ring, run by my own mentor, Professor Robert Finch. He was a master manipulator who framed me, stripped me of my credentials, and left me completely blacklisted, forcing me to serve $300 steaks just to survive. The Seraphine had a private dining suite reserved for the kind of wealth that moves nations. On this particular Tuesday, that suite held a constellation of power, Julius Blackwood, a billionaire with an almost mythical reputation for ruthless acquisitions, a charismatic salesman named Marcus Thorne, and a purported expert, Professor Harding. I moved among them, placing wine glasses and clearing bread plates, an expert in blending into the wallpaper. But that night, the conversation was too compelling to ignore. They were finalizing a deal worth $200 million for an ancient document, the Al-Jail Charter. They claimed it was a 12th century legal land grant from a powerful desert dynasty, a charter that purportedly held the mineral rights to an area now valued at over $40 billion. As a historian of antiquities, I knew such documents were rare to the point of myth. As I poured Blackwood's water, the document, a large, impressive scroll laid out under glass, was passed around. My professional instinct, sharpened over to decades, screamed in alarm. I was only a waitress holding a tray, but my brain was instantly cataloging errors. The script, which should have been the harsh, angular Kufic script used by legal scribes in the 12th century, was instead the flowing, elegant Naz script, a style that didn't even exist until the 14th century. This was a clumsy, insulting forgery. But these supposed experts were completely missing the obvious chronological flaw. I moved closer, straining to hear Professor Harding drone on about the authenticity of the seal. My eyes scanned the text, my mind, trained to translate dead languages on sight, fixated on the crucial fourth line. The one Harding claimed was the legal land grant. I recognized the rhythm, the cadence. That line did not read as a legal decree. It translated, perfectly and clearly, to, "The wind sings its sorrow from the river to the mountain." It was a famous line from a 14th century love poem, a piece I had taught to undergraduates dozens of times. They were about to pay $200 million for a forged love letter. The tension was excruciating. Thorne was urging Blackwood to sign the transfer papers. My hands were shaking, not from fear but from academic outrage. I couldn't let it happen. I pushed through the swinging kitchen door one last time and walked back into the silence of the private suite. I placed my tray on a side table, took a deep breath, and stood directly behind the table. My uniform suddenly feeling like a costume. I spoke, and the room went silent instantly. I didn't use a hesitant voice. I used the clear, authoritative tone of a curator lecturing a room of students. My voice, usually quiet, now filled the room. I addressed Harding directly, indicting the forgery in flawless, perfect academic Arabic, detailing exactly why he was wrong. I noted the wrong family seal and then focused on the most critical, unassailable evidence, the ink. I explained that genuine 12th century ink, based on an iron gall mixture, is highly corrosive and would have faded unevenly over 8 centuries. The ink on the Al-Jail Charter sat flat on the parchment, uniform and suspiciously vibrant. I concluded, my voice steady, that the document was colored with a modern synthetic dye, likely made within the last 5 years. I finished by translating the fourth line from Mr. Blackwood, a love poem, not a deed. The silence that followed was absolute, shattered only by the sound of Thorne's sharp intake of breath. Blackwood, who was seconds from authorizing a $200 million transfer, stared at me, his face shifting from confusion to shock to a terrifying, controlled fury aimed entirely at Thorne and Harding. He knew I was right. My knowledge, my specialized, blacklisted expertise was irrefutable. Thorne attempted a panicked denial, but Blackwood wasn't listening. He simply gestured to his security team. The chaos subsided quickly. Blackwood looked at me, a waitress in a cheap apron, and saw the brilliant curator who had just saved his foundation. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low and intense. I told him my name and the full, ruined truth of my career, naming Professor Finch and the fraud he had pinned on me. His response was immediate and profound. "You just saved me a fortune. Dr. Vance, I don't care about your past. I care about your integrity." He hired me on the spot, not as a consultant, but as the director of acquisitions for the Blackwood Foundation, with a salary that dwarfed the dreams of my former curatorial position. But the deal came with a single, crucial directive. My first mission was to use the Foundation's immense legal and financial resources to systematically dismantle the forgery ring run by Robert Finch and clear my name. The waitress job was over. The real work was just beginnings a year later, operating from a clean, secure office in Geneva. The retribution was complete. We cornered Finch on his most prized discovery, the Codex of Spires. My team and I proved, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that he had used a 1974 invented acrylic polymer to stabilize the binding of the fake document. The evidence was irrefutable. Finch was convicted, my name was completely cleared, and my career was reborn, stronger and more powerful than before. I am no longer serving wine. I am securing justice. The story ends not in a dusty library, but in that same high-rise Geneva suite. I am Dr. Emma Vance, a formidable, respected director using my power, wealth, and expertise to combat antiquities trafficking and reclaim stolen cultural heritage from around the world. The price of that $200 million scam was my old life, but the reward was the power to ensure my knowledge would never be silenced again.